My part about maroци bind, I have tried to structure combining old famous games from time of Petrosian and Larsen up to modern games of Carlsen, and to try to be busy with the main lines. So I would like first of all to explain how did I try to structure my material. This is not an opening DVD, it is middle games DVD, but I will try to give some informations about openings, at least to give my opinions, just like I did with Rosolimo. So I will come to maroци from the most regular move order, g6, c4, bishop g7, bishop e3. There is also here idea sometimes for white to try to play move knight c2. I have done it few times as well. What is the basic idea? The basic idea is when black plays move knight f6, to play move knight c3 and to keep more pieces on the board, not to allow trades. Okay, this is true. This is, for example, in general, white should not complain about more pieces on the board because he has more space. What can be potential drawback of a move like knight c2 compared to bishop e3? Well, let's say if black delays his knight development, let's suppose the black plays move d6. Most probably white's best move is knight c3. And then black is having a possibilities to go over this kind of pawn structure. Some strong players have been doing this. I would not be so much bothered with the white having those double pawns. That's why I have played move knight c2 a few times in my career. But, okay, it is a different position and computer engines are also not sure what's going on. Another option for black in such a kind of positions is to play for f5 pawn push. This is also a possibility, either immediately or first to play move knight h6 and then to play for f5 pawn push, which normally in such a positions you cannot do because you have to develop a knight and now, okay, you no longer can do this pawn push. So knight c2 compared to bishop e3, knight c2 is having this advantage after knight f6 that you can play move knight c3 and keep more pieces on the board. We don't have too many games here, not too many top games. But this advantage is that after a move like d6, best move is knight c3. And then black can choose either for going for this pawn structure change, or to go for f5 idea, or to go for knight h6 followed by f5 idea. Those are different kind of lines. So what I will do, I will here try to focus on the main line. And this is move bishop e3, knight f6, the main move. Again, not the only move. There is also a move like d6 in this position. Still keeping the possibility to push move like f5, which is not crazy. I think that white is better. Was it tried? It was tried. I just think that white is better. Also, in some games, black was going for plans with e5, which again, is it possible? Maybe. Is white better? I think so. So let's focus here. I mean, not immediately, but a bit later to go with the push. So d6, for example, is keeping all the options after bishop e3. Move like d6 is keeping all the possible options. Push f5 or try to push e5. This is a move which is keeping various kind of options. Try to keep possibility to develop knight to h6, but it is considered the sidelines. It doesn't lead to typical maroци positions, and that's why, since it is not opening DVD but understanding classical position of maroци DVD, I did not want this to be my starting position. So I did choose for a main move knight f6, knight c3, And this is my starting position of this DVD on maroци. So here I would like to somehow, I will start this with a famous old game between Keres and Petrosyan, played in a candidates tournament, Bled Zagreb, Belgrade, 1959. This is a famous tournament where young Bobby Fischer played for the first time in the candidates, and tournament was won by Mikhail Tal, who later on continued and became a world champion. Then he beat Botvinnik in 1960. So here black is having, let's say, three main lines of play. Black is anyhow going to do the trades of a light pieces. One typical trade is to play move knight g4, because this knight is on d4, and after queen takes g4, knight d4. Best move for white is queen d1 back, because knight c2 is hanging. And here black has a choice between playing move knight e6, which is move most favored by Danish famous player Ben Larsen. In this game Petrosyan also played it, but it is called in many opening manuals Larsen line, because he is the person that really played this on so many occasions and a lot of success. Second move is to go back knight c6, which I think is inferior, because if black wants to go with the knight to c6 and to trade a pair of knights, then probably black is better off to actually trade it immediately, or to play move d6 and then to trade it, which I also will be busy in this DVD. Why? Because let's suppose that I play bishop e2, and let's say we go castles, and I now decide, let's say, to play bishop d7, queen d2. By the way, move like knight c2 is possible again. Here it is maybe useful to mention that winning a bishop pair is not much of a great deal for black. Why? Because white is having this maroци bind, or first queen d2. White is having this maroци bind, and this bishop is not a useful piece fighting this knight, because maroци bind which white is having is limiting the power of this bishop. By the way, maybe useful to say that maroци bind is named after famous Hungarian grandmaster Geza Maroczy, who did play those systems about 100 years ago. So, if black wants to do some trades, then he is, let's say, better off to do it here, or to do it here. What I wanted to say, let's say that it is better idea for black to keep his knight on f6, because as we are going to see, this knight can later go to d7 and to c5, rather than to keep the knight on c6. For example, knight g4, queen g4 takes, back and knight c6. I'm going to be dealing with all three of those kind of positions. So this kind of position, then knight g4, queen g4, queen d1, knight e6 kind of position, and also with move d6, with idea to trade knight on c6 for a knight on d4, and then this knight can go via d7 to c5, for example. Those three plans are three basic common plans for black, and I will try in this DVD to somehow help you understand those plans better, or at least I'm going to explain my understanding of these plans, and I hope to be right. I will try to explain what black and white are trying to achieve. So let's start with this knight g4 plan. White has to take, queen d1, knight c6, knight e6. In this game was played move queen d2. Rook c1 also can be played. Sometimes those lines, very often those moves, rook c1 followed by queen d2 or queen d2 followed by rook c1, it comes down to the same. There are some nuances, however. Okay, queen d2, d6, bishop e2, bishop d7. There are some things which is here important. Bent Larsen, who's like I said, this line was basically named after. Very often he here opted for queen a5 kind of setup. Such a kind of setup. Why? Because with his queen he wants to somehow bother white, so white cannot easily push his queenside pawns. And he would like to improve the bishop and very often push g5. Sometimes even h5, playing for the dark squares. We are going to deal with this in a explanation after this game because it is a separate kind of plan. Something which is important for white in such a kind of position, actually I came to conclusion almost in all of those positions, if white, for example, can without any problems take space, white should do it. Because white pawn, if it comes to b4, stops queen coming to a5 and also stops this knight coming to c5. Most of the time black plays either like this Larsen plan, queen a5, which then in such a position it is not so simple to push b4 because some pawn will be hanging all the time, or play move like a5. Let's say d6, and then he wants, just like Petrosian in this game, to play move like a5 in order to support the knight on c5. It is important for white, at least my belief is that it's important for white if white can take space, because if black does not have queen on a5 or knight on c5, then black is actually very passive, and then black has quite the problems. So queen d2, d6, bishop e2, bishop d7. I was wondering here, for example, what happens if black plays a5, which for some reason is not played at all. Is it really stupid? Well, it's not so clear, but engine says that very logically white now should probably try to play for a central pawn push. So let's say rook d1, bishop d7, f4, bishop c6, knight d5, taking space. Is position clear? I'm not so sure. Like knight c5, let's say e5, castles. Your engine will tell you that white is better. Is white really better? I'm not sure. It looks very complicated to me. Perhaps white is better and has an initiative. This is, however, logical way for white to react if black plays this move a5, trying to secure the knight. Logical reaction for white is to try to size up the moment, because white is better developed in this moment, and go for a more aggressive kind of play like rook d1, bishop d7, f4. We will see in some games that very often white goes for this f4 plan in the case that he gets a chance for an attack, like in famous game Larsen-Petrosian, which we are going to see in this part of DVD. Bishop d7. Castles. Okay, I was wondering how would be position in the case that white says, okay, I'm going to surrender the c5 square, but I'm going to take the space. Because on b4, the most logical move for black and the best move is a5. b5, knight c5. Let's say rook d1, castles. We don't have this in practice, really. Your engine will give white a plus, like 0.80, something like this. Not easy to judge. I do not think it's 0.80. Just engine is programmed to respect space. White has space, black has this knight on c5. It is not easy call. Okay, you cannot, by the way, win a piece because this knight is also hanging, so it will take a while until this is a threat. But let's say castles, rook c8. By the way, it is per definition wrong for black to grab this pawn. It is really wrong because many things will happen. You cannot go back because, okay, something like this happens. Black should, in 95% of the cases, refrain from snatching this pawn. But let's say such a position, engine is happy with white. Is white really better? I think it's very difficult to say. It is not obvious what is black immediate counterplay because most of the time black's counterplay is connected to move like f5 in similar positions. If he does it, he also then opens up position a bit. I think we have here a very complicated struggle, and that Stockfish giving white like I said 0.8, 0.75, I think that engine is basically wrong. That position is not really clear. Black's main counterplay again is connected to f5 pawn push. Okay, Keres obviously thought the same, so he played move castles. Here we have important moment because here castles was played, and this is probably a mistake. A move a5 or queen a5 can be played. Queen a5 actually, there was one interesting idea by Velimirovic, which I would show. But first of all, what happens if black plays a5? Well, if white plays move like, let's say, rook c1, we are going to get positions like in a game, because it happened castles, rook c1, bishop c6, a5 was better, rook d1, a5, knight c5, f3, a5. So, if white is to play move rook a c1, something similar is going to happen, let's say castles, rook d1, bishop c6, and then we will get some similar play. White can decide to push f4, like I said, because black wants to secure his knight, but black is also spending time. And again, let's say bishop c6, knight e5, knight c5, because, okay, I'm threatening some jumps, or bishop b6, e5, castles. We have this position again, which now I was just talking about. Now it's Kemba move transposition. Is it clear? I'm not so sure. Like, for example, bishop d5, cd5, b6. Here computer is very happy with the white suggesting e6, f5, rook ac1, rook c8, king h1, preparing g4. I'm not sure this is clear at all, because black is not exactly mated. Position is closed, reasonably closed. White has to spend some time to open it up with the g4 and to try to mate black. Does black have some play? Black has play. Black is not here like a sitting duck. So I'm not sure that this position is as fantastic for white as your engine would tell you. Again, engine would tell you like 0.7. I'm not sure. I think it's reasonably unclear, but I know from experience, when you have a bishop fighting a knight, you decide to focus upon structure. Even though you take a space, you always take some strategic risk. But a5 is certainly interesting option, not played. The probably most principle for white is indeed to change plan and to start pushing in the center and playing on a black king. Queen a5 is interesting move. Well, idea is very simple. White has to be worried that black can take any moment and double those pawns, and then play move f6. So black will maybe take, and if white takes, play f6. Put pawns on dark squares. Knight can come to c5. If white doesn't push anything, even pawn can come to g5, and black can say, okay, show me. You have a double pawns, show me what you got. So rook fc1 is logical move, knight c5. And here in the one game we have, because here we don't have games for some reason, white played move f3, which allowed black to equalize with the move knight a4. This ending is dead equal. White play bishop d4, but takes, queen c5, knight c5. Knight c5 is better than dc5 because dc5 allows some knight jump and space taking. This knight is a bit out of play. You cannot hit out this knight so easily. This is not equal. White should be better. You can also not attack knight and take it because then you improve my pawn structure. But knight c5, knight d5, rook c8, for example b4, knight e6, this position is about equal. Rook d1, black can for example play move g5. Typical way to play with the black. Bent Larsen played this in many games. Position is about equal. White has space, but we don't have that many pieces, so white cannot actually build on this space so easily. What can be best for white? Well, the best for white actually is here to play move bishop h6 to temporarily sacrifice a pawn. Bishop c3 or bishop e5 will lead to similar. So let's say bishop e5, rook a b1, forcing decision because threat is b4. Bishop c3, rook c3, knight e4, queen d4. Queen e5 is forced. Trying to playing some moves like knight f6 is just, okay, suicide. Position opens up. Bishop g7 will come. Queen is hanging. This position is horrible. This position is completely lost. So queen e5, entering ending is needed. Takes. Rook e3, knight f6. Now, for example, taking on e5, probably it leads to somewhat better position for white. Knight g4, takes. White should have some advantage here, but it's probably going to be a draw. It is very small. Probably best for white is to keep the bishops, both bishops on the board, playing f3. Black should play e4, trying to damage structure. h3 is best move, because if I take, then again bishop trade will happen. This is way too risky, because too many threats. Maybe even this was very good right away. So ef3 is certainly very bad blunder. Bishop e6. Okay, white is probably better, based on two bishops. Two bishops and this 3 versus 2 majority should be promising white some advantage. So, but it is interesting plan for black, and for white, white needs to react well. In most of the cases, in maroцi, it is useful to know that in most of the cases, black is okay with the queen trade. Most of the cases, huge majority. We are going to see some endings when you get the queen trade and black suffers. But in many cases, black is just maybe very slightly worse and is holding. So now let us go to our game. Castles. Here definitely move b4 need to be played. Because if black cannot fortify this knight, and he cannot, then white is simply better. Trying to get some active play doesn't really work. Takes. Let's say rook a1. Bishop c6 like rook a3. White wants to jump. Again, grabbing a pawn leads to some bad consequences. Queen takes. Attack a rook back. And here, for example, elegant move queen b2 is quite good. Rook e3 is coming. moment this knight is eliminated, well, checkmate is likely to happen. White has winning attack here. If bishop c6, now we can move a rook. And white is here better. Again, white is here very, very dominant. Black does not have here adequate play. So, if we have position like this with white, we should eliminate this knight from the possibility to fortify itself on c5. b4 is, I think, here the best move, by far. Rook ac1 was played. Bishop c6. Well, best move is a5. At least I think so. Not easy to criticize Keres and Petrosyan. But a5, making sure that this knight gets its square. And then we can transpose to the game. Bishop c6, rook fd1, mistake, b4. And black is very passive. Because the best move for black is probably b6. Bishop c3 is again disaster. Queen takes, bishop e4, bishop h6, rook e8, let's say bishop f5, bishop g4, f5, rook e1. Here massacre is going to happen. Simply massacre is going to happen. b6, knight e5. Well, black here, as we are going to see, compared to the game, in the game, black had a pawn on a5, white had a pawn still on b2 or b3, and black had a fortified knight on c5. Very huge difference. Here, black does not have a counterplay he had in the game. White has massive space advantage, and black has really very difficult life. Move like a5, fighting for a square does not help, let's say b5, bishop d7, knight a4 is just winning, because you cannot put any piece. But I was curious, for argument's sake, just to figure out, for example, how is this position? Let's suppose that I'm refusing to play my best move. I play move rook d1. So I refuse to play my best move. I want to allow b6, knight a4, knight c5. Knight c5, bc5, a4. I was curious preparing for this DVD. Okay, white is obviously better, because white has more space. But this pawn is not really queening immediately. White can stage an attack. White can push also his pawns. But what is the size of white advantage? Actually, size is almost +3, according to Stockfish, based on a space advantage. So do not underestimate space advantage.